Hey guys, welcome back to Queens of the Damned, a horror podcast. This week we're talking about found footage movies. I'm going to start the episode out with a discussion of Creep. Nikki is going to discuss VHS, and then Rachel is going to end the episode with a discussion of Cannibal Holocaust. Don't forget we still have our giveaway going on. If you subscribe to us on Podbean, give us a review on Facebook, leave us a review on iTunes, then you're going to be entered into our giveaway. You can check out our giveaway items on Facebook. They include a few movies and some little horror-related memorabilia items. So head on over to Facebook, check out those items, leave us some reviews or subscribe to us so you can win some cool stuff. Happy listening! So Creep came out in 2015, and it is available on Netflix if anybody wants to watch it. That's where I watched it the first time. So this movie was actually recommended to me by the guys over on the horror show. I just kind of randomly was like, okay, I need a new movie to watch, and they sent me this one. I was really unsure, because they watched some really bad movies. But the first time I watched it, I thought it was really weird. But I kind of developed an appreciation for it because I think it does a really good job with found footage. What happens in Creep? A videographer named Aaron responds to an internet ad, which is written by a man named Joseph. He claims that he's dying of a brain tumor, and he wants his life recorded for his unborn son to watch. Well, Joseph is really weird. Right from the outset, he kind of watches Aaron arrive, but doesn't really show up until a little while later, and he admits that he was just kind of watching him. He wants to hug Aaron right away, which is kind of weird, because they've never met each other. Oh, and I should mention, obviously this whole thing is being filmed by Aaron through his video camera. So, all of this weird stuff just keeps happening. Joseph gets into a bathtub and wants Aaron to film him in the bathtub, saying it's his and his son's first tubby, since they won't have one together. And it's a really weird scene. He's, pretending to be taking care of a child in the tub. It's really kind of uncomfortable to watch, which is the point. But Aaron eventually finds a mask, a wolf mask, in one of Joseph's closets, and he says it's called Peach Fuzz. Peach Fuzz ends up being kind of like a persona for Joseph, but it's creepy as hell, the mask is. There is another scene where Joseph and Aaron go out on a trail to find a stream that Joseph claims has magical healing waters. So, of course, Joseph runs into the woods at one point, and Aaron can't find him, and Joseph just jumps out at him, and Joseph takes as many opportunities as he can to do this to Aaron. It's really weird. He doesn't really just seem to have any point in doing it. He just does it all the time. And he always waits until Aaron is, actually freaking out to do stuff like this. And then Joseph starts asking really weird questions or starts saying really weird things. So when Joseph first jumps out at Aaron in the woods, he says, "That was incredible. You had a near-death experience. That's what it feels like when you know you're going to die." So, that's not something that you say to someone you just recently met over the internet. And then later on, Joseph asks Aaron, "When you saw that axe in front of the house, did a small part of you think I was going to kill you with it?" It's just simply because Aaron says the word X, but Joseph thinks he says axe. So, everything just keeps getting weirder and weirder, and Joseph keeps making these really weird comments to him. And Aaron starts to find out that Joseph's lying about pretty much everything. He starts catching him in lies. When they go to a restaurant, Joseph claims, it's like a family tradition, but he doesn't know what he's gonna get when he gets there. The people don't recognize him. So Aaron starts to kind of notice what's going on. And then there's one point when they get back. Once they get back from this trip, things start to get a lot more intense. Joseph admits that he has to tell Aaron something. What he decides to tell Aaron is a complete lie, and there's no reason for him to say it to him. But it's really disgusting and creepy. So he tells Aaron that he discovered his wife had been viewing animal pornography, and that was why he bought the wolf mask. He put on the mask, broke into the house, tied her up, and claimed that she woke up and they had sex. And he tries to say that their marriage improved after that.
Mm-hmm.
But, of course, later on we find out he's lying. So it's the weirdest thing for him to be saying to Aaron for no reason. So Aaron can't find his keys after this story. He wants to leave because he's really freaked out. He knows that Joseph has taken his keys, and so on and so forth. So when Aaron is trying to get out, Joseph ends up waking up, and Joseph is doing his best to keep him inside of the house. But the next thing we know, we see Joseph dragging trash bags up a hill, and he starts to dig a hole. So you're kind of left to believe that Aaron has died. But we find out we're watching a video that Joseph had sent to Aaron. I don't want to give away how this ends, because the ending of this is really what makes this movie different, I think. Because instead of the film just ending with Aaron dying, we know that Aaron actually survived past this house, being in this house with Joseph, and a lot goes on. Joseph stalks him, keeps sending him things, really like weird things and things that are suggestive of Joseph's plans to hurt him. And I'm gonna leave it there because I want everybody to watch this movie. I know I gave away a lot with a summary, but the way the film is shot is very well done because there's no music to the movie. It feels very real. It feels like you're there and in the moment. And I think the fact that there's no music in this makes it a little bit like even more uncomfortable for the viewer, because you're already uncomfortable by the things that Joseph is doing. But the fact that there's like no music telling you how you should feel, or no music telling you like, is he actually being funny? Is this just him being weird? I think it all works together so well. And like I said, I think the ending of the movie is kind of what separates it from a lot of other movies. And I would also like to say there is a Creep 2, and it is great. Mm-hmm. That is my spiel. Do you have anything to say about it, Rachel?
I mean, I agree with you. I love this movie. Mm-hmm. For anyone who has watched Wild Wild Country or what was the other one called? Can't remember, but it was about the pizza bomber on Netflix. Those are both made by the Duplass brothers, who also wrote this movie, and one of them stars in it. I think he plays Joseph. Mm-hmm. So if you like their stuff, I think people would like this movie. I love it. I agree that the ending is unique. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what sets it apart from other found footage horror movies. But it was a lot of fun. And I guess they're going to make a third one.
Yay!
And I'll watch that too.
Yes. I was really surprised that the second one was so good, because I usually don't like sequels.
I was kind of afraid when I heard they were making a second one. I was like, oh no, but the first one was so fun. And like, why would you ruin it? But then, it was really good too. So I'm not as skeptical about the third one. Yeah.
I'm excited. I didn't know they were making a third one, so I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah. And it's Blumhouse that also made this movie. So obviously they did Get Out, they did The Purge, they did Split, I think. So like they're just killing it with horror movies.
Oh yeah. They really are.
Nikki, have you seen this movie?
No, I haven't, but this movie's actually, I actually just heard of it today. I was on the My Favorite Horror group, and there was a recommendation list for, like, movies to watch during the fall, and Creep and its sequel were both on there, so I kind of looked up some stuff about it.
Yeah.
It's not a Netflix original, right?
I feel like it is. Like, I know Blumhouse made it, but I feel like it premiered on Netflix.
I think it might have too.
Like, I don't think it was in the theater.
Yeah.
This was when I was, like, kind of indecisive about watching based on the descriptions and the ratings of it, but, like, I was glad I got to hear you talk about it, because I was like, oh, great, now I get to decide based on what, like, Miranda and Rachel thought of it.
Mm-hmm. It's so good.
The first time I watched it with my parents, and after it was done, they were like, what did you just make us watch? Because it's such a weird movie.
It's weird.
But it's so good.
It's clever. It's very clever. And they really, I think, do something different with the found footage genre, which is what I like. Especially with, I guess, ever since Blair Witch, everyone hopped on the found footage train. So I like when they do something different.
Yeah, I feel like I just have to see it, because while you were describing it, I was like, what is happening right now?
So good.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So good.
It's good. I mean, you get to see, like, this progression with Joseph that's really interesting, because you kind of get the feeling that there's something off about him, but it isn't like that clear for a little while. So I don't know, I really liked that, because yeah, like I said, sometimes you can't tell. You're like, is he joking? Is he serious? Is he threatening him? Like, what is this guy doing?
What a joke. Jeez. I'm just gonna send you threatening letters, guys. But it's a joke. Like,
well, and I think I remember when it came out, them saying something like, this was inspired by, like, Craigslist and kind of, like, the weird people, the weird encounters that you can have via Craigslist. And I could definitely see that.
Yeah. That kind of makes more sense now when you frame it that way.
No, I thought it was a lot of fun. Good pick.
Thanks.
Good pick.
I'm glad you picked it, and I was like, wow, that's just destiny, because I had just read about it today, and I was like, oh, okay, well, we're doing this now. Okay, wonderful. So I chose VHS, which is one of the very well-known found footage / anthology movies. It's going to be kind of hard to describe because it is an anthology. So I liked this movie a lot better the first time I saw it. This was the second time I watched it. I guess I knew what to expect this time, so some of the worse acting and the, cheesy stuff kind of popped out at me a little more this time. But the first segment, there's 5 different segments in this movie, and it's all framed around, it's like footage within footage, so it's a bunch of dude bros messing around, and they're gonna go, like, rob this old guy, right? And they go in and they find this old guy dead in front of all these TVs that are staticky, and, per its eponymous name, VHS, like, this is the era of VHS tapes, right? So you're putting yourself in that mind frame. And they find all these tapes, and they're playing them, and they're just all these weird horror videos. And so the first segment they watch, while this guy's sitting there dead, is, like, again, this group of total douchebags, just like them. So we have this sort of, like, doppelganger, mirroring, gothic sort of thing going on with, like, oh, this is you, right away. Not obvious at all, right? So these douchebags are going out clubbing, and they're like, oh, we're gonna get some girls and everything, and they're really trying to film women that they're gonna have sex with. And so they have these camera glasses that they very obviously put on this one guy, and they go out to the bars, and they take a couple girls back to this hotel room, and there's this one girl who's like, just this actress, I love her so much. She's just very quiet. She's got these big Helena Bonham Carter, like, Tim Burton eyes, and she doesn't say much, except she likes to sniff the guys, but not in, like, a sexy way, in a, like, I really want to eat you way. And they still take her to the hotel, of course, because they're stupid. And there's a lot of, like, commentary on rape and sexual assault in this one. It's kind of hard to watch because they get these girls really drunk. There's the one quote-unquote normal girl who's, like, totally passed out, and the guy is, like, still trying to have sex with her, and one guy's like, dude, leave her alone, she's done, like, stop. And then they start going in on the wide-eyed, pretty dark-haired woman, and she says only 3 words throughout the whole thing. She says, I like you, in this really, like, creepy, soft voice. But of course they don't think anything of it. And then when they start having sex with her, she starts tearing them apart. And she turns into this creature, which I guess we can assume is a succubus. Mythologically, she feeds off of men in this very sexual way. And eventually she sprouts wings, and the guy with the camera glasses is trying to run away from her, and she likes him, so she picks him up and takes him away to her nest, and that's the last thing you see is, like, you can see, like, him looking up at her while she's carrying him in her talons, and, like, you just see the wings in the sky, and I know it sounds really it sounds really cheesy if you haven't seen it, but it is, like, some great found footage stuff right there. It's like subtle until it's not subtle anymore, and then it's fucking crazy. And there's actually a movie called Siren they made 2 years ago that has the same actress in it, and she's the same thing. She's a succubus. It's pretty much the same plot, just dragged out over like 2.5 hours. It's okay. I watched it because I love the actress, and I just love what she did with that character. So if you like that particular segment in VHS, go ahead and watch them film. It's worth it for that. I'm just gonna talk about like a couple of the segments that stuck out to me. The second one isn't paranormal, but it's like this couple on a road trip in the desert, and they stop at this motel. And if you really don't know the context of this skit, it is kind of scary because you just don't know what's going to happen. And this guy's like really pushy with, again, trying to record this woman and trying to record her naked. And they're in a relationship, but she's like just not into that. And he gets all pissy about it, of course. And then all of a sudden there's this knocking on the door, right? And it's this girl in a sweatshirt, and she's like asking the guy for a ride tomorrow. Like, can I get a ride? And they're out in the middle of nowhere in this motel. And they were like, well, hopefully she'll just go away. And then the camera turns on in the middle of the night, and, like, someone is walking around, like, stealing stuff from their clothes and, like, pushing a knife up onto the girl. And eventually you find out it's, like, basically the woman wanted to have her boyfriend killed so she could be with her lesbian lover. Which, like, this all sounds really dumb, but it's okay. It's okay in this context, like, in the skit. It just works. And then, I don't know, there's, like, some more skits in there. I really don't want to talk about everything because I don't want to ruin all of it. They're all, like, little twisty stories. There's this one really cool one where this girl takes these teenagers up to the woods, and she's acting all weird, and she's like, you're all gonna die up here. And then there's this, like, monster made of this sort of, like, digital stuff. Like, he's all staticky, and he can move faster than anyone else can move. And she basically brought him up there to have him killed because no one else believed her the last time it happened. And I thought it was kind of really unique that they used, like, the special effects in it were really good for a found footage film. And it was something I'd never seen before. It was a little freaky. There's 5 skits or segments, and I keep wanting to call them skits, but they're not comedy, so they're not supposed to be comedy. There's 5. Some are great, some are not so great. But that's kind of the nature of the beast with anthology films.
The first one, the one with the girl with the wings, was definitely my favorite. I mean, that's the one that, because I mean, I watched this movie, I don't know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something on Netflix. And that's the one that's always, like, stuck with me. Is that one. And to me, that's the high point of that movie. But I actually like the sequel better.
I first saw the first one when it came out. So it's been a long time for me. But whenever I think of VHS, I always think about that succubus one. I think that's the same for most people. Yeah. It's a really memorable, now I want to call them skits.
Yeah, segment, I think, is the word for it, but
yes. It's a very memorable moment in the film. So, I don't know if I've seen any of the other ones, but they're on my list. I need to watch them, because I know when I saw VHS the first time, I liked it. So. Yeah,
the second one is really great.
I like the second one.
I almost like it better than the first one. The third one was shitty. Don't watch it.
I haven't seen the third one. I think probably because I've heard it's not that great.
Yeah, I didn't like it. That one was disappointing because the first 2 were so good that when I saw a new one came out, I was like, oh my god, this is it. No, it wasn't it.
Good at all.
It wasn't
actually
it.
The fourth one in this one stuck out to me too. The first, oh my god, this one scared me a little bit until they did the
haunted
reveal.
House?
No, the one with the webcam and the girl's like her boyfriend's long distance, and she's like, I think my apartment's haunted. I don't know what's going on.
Oh yeah.
And she's sitting there and she's like, okay, there are ghosts. Like I keep hearing footsteps. I'm not crazy. And she's like itching at her arm. Apparently, like she's had some self-harm issues in the past that they hint to. And there's a huge twist on it, but she's like just sitting here like I am, and there's a door behind her, and in the dark, like, a little kid just runs through the room, and I'm like, that really got me.
I
She
do
was like, do you
remember
see
that one
anything?
now.
Do you see anything behind me? Is everything okay? And it's like, but when they reveal what it actually is, which I won't, in case you want to watch this and haven't yet for some reason, it just makes it lamer. Because there's, like, an explanation for all the stuff, and I sometimes think that ruins it, because then you can rationalize it. Or like, if they say, this is this particular being, and you're not scared of that particular thing, then it's like, oh, well, if it's just that, well, okay, then. So, no, the haunted house one was really forgettable, that I didn't even watch it the second time.
Yeah, I don't really remember what happened in it. I just remember that it was there.
So Miranda and I were I was trying to remember earlier while I was talking to Miranda, and I was like, it was these guys who dress up and go to a Halloween party. They go into the house and there's no one there. And so they're exploring the house, unless I'm making this up in my head, which I might be. They're exploring the house
and they're like, find somebody.
Weird
right?
things start happening or whatever, and then the whole thing just devolves. It's like weird shit happening everywhere they turn the camera. It's just really... If I was putting together an anthology, I wouldn't end with that one. Let's just say that.
No.
I think it was the weakest in the whole bunch.
Yeah. Well, and then I guess for people who haven't seen it, there's also a plot line running with the guys that are watching these VHS tapes.
Now, because I didn't watch the last one, I didn't finish it with the guys either, because I didn't give a fuck what happened to them, and I was like, four segments is enough. So... But yeah, what happens to them at the end?
I think the guy that's dead isn't really dead, right?
Oh my god. Okay, that might have been
right, Miranda?
Sticking around for.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, because like as they're watching
right.
the tapes, like they're vanishing like one by one. Like someone else will come into the room and the guy who was in there watching the tape is just like gone. And so then he sits down and watches the tape. Yeah, but I can't honestly remember the exact thing that happens, but I feel like that's it.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
I think that wasn't emphasized enough for anyone to care that much until the end, because I was just like,
it was just like another fun horror story. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just forgot it completely. I missed it like both times because I was just going, what's the next?
Yeah, because then the plot of the second one, isn't it like the connecting plot is the cops investigating what happened to these guys that disappeared after breaking into this guy's house.
Okay.
I believe is like the overarching plot, and then it's the same thing where they have like the segments of the different videos that they're watching. Yeah. Love it. Love it. They're so good.
I love horror anthology too.
I find anthologies to be really hit or miss. Like, I think I've talked about it before, but I watched this horrible one about holidays.
Yes, the Kevin Smith one.
I think you have talked about it.
There was a Kevin Smith segment. One of our first episodes, I think, is horrible.
Yeah.
But parts of it were good, which is the problem is that if like a couple of the segments are good, but most of them are bad, I wouldn't recommend the movie.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But then, like, I don't know if you guys have seen Trick or Treat, but that one is great. And I find all of the segments to be really good. So I recommend that one to people all the time. Okay,
Rachel, what do you have for us?
Okay. My turn. Guys, I picked a movie that has no redeeming qualities. So I honestly cannot in good conscience recommend this movie to literally anyone. But if you want to watch it, it's an experience. So I chose literally the original found footage horror movie, and that is Cannibal Holocaust. So Cannibal Holocaust came out in 1980. It's Italian, and it was directed by this guy named, I'm probably going to butcher his name, Ruggero Deodato. And he had kind of made a name for himself in making really gory movies, right? So he's like watching, I can't even remember, he's watching like news coverage of some event, and he feels like the media is only interested in portraying like the violence that's happening during this conflict and has no journalistic integrity. So he decides that that's what he wants to make a movie about. So the plot of this movie, it barely has any plot. It's really just people being like raped and eaten and killed and all this kind of stuff. So the plot is that this American film crew goes to the Amazon rainforest, and they're filming a documentary about indigenous cannibal tribes, and their documentary is called The Green Inferno. And a rescue team goes down to try and find them, and they can't find them, but they do find their footage. So like a third of the movie is the rescue team kind of deciding what to do with the footage, and then the rest of the movie is the actual footage of what happened to this camera crew. And I mean, obviously they've all died. A bunch of stuff happens. I'm not really going to get into it. It's a lot of like rape. There's like 2 gang rapes in this movie.
Oh God.
Yeah, I mean,
Jeez.
it's definitely, this is like it's like a shock horror type thing, right? It's just like the gorier the better. And this girl who gets gang raped ends up being impaled on a wooden pole, which is kind of like the most famous image from the movie.
Yeah.
And basically it ends with them questioning who the real cannibals are. So is it this indigenous tribe who's really just kind of, this is their way of life and this is how they live? Or is it the Americans who are coming in and raping this indigenous girl? And then of course they end up getting murdered. And of course we as white people would say, oh my God, those horrible cannibals, look what they did to those people.
Savages.
But, right, look at those savages. But the white people are the ones that interfered with them, right? They were fine on their own. So Deodato casts entirely unknowns in this movie. He decides to make the movie in English because he, wants it to be more accessible, I guess, to the rest of the world. Not that this is really an accessible movie. But he basically casts all unknown people. He casts a couple of people that are like porn actors. And then like one of the producer's girlfriends is in it because like they just needed like somebody else. So she just filled in. So most of the people in this movie are not trained actors. So they released this movie in 1980. Initially, there is like the audience reaction is actually really positive. But then 10 days later, I guess the way the Italian court system works is you could do like a citizen complaint and then the court system can get involved, right? Okay. So someone complains about this movie and the court system gets involved and it ends up being confiscated 10 days after it premieres. Deodato is arrested and he's charged with obscenity. And part of this movie being seized means that all copies have to be turned over to the Italian state. But they end up smuggling a bunch of copies out, and it ends up being distributed worldwide, right? All while he is, sitting and waiting to be tried on these obscenity charges. So, unfortunately, a year later, the movie makes it to France. And there's a French magazine that puts out this article that basically says, this is a snuff film.
Oh, God.
Now you have to keep in mind, no one had ever seen a found footage horror movie before. Nobody had ever seen anything like this movie before. And it looks realistic. Like the scenes that are filmed in the jungle that the film crew are making, it looks real. And if you had never seen a movie like this before, I could see where you would be confused. And sure enough, they were confused.
I knew about the trial aspect of this, and
there's more.
I know you're about to say something.
Yes, there's more.
But I didn't know that the French said it was a snuff film, and that's why. Was it maybe just journalists going, oh, it was a snuff film? Or, like, did someone seriously think it was?
Someone must have seriously thought it, because he ends up being charged with murder. The director of the film ends up being charged with murder in Italy.
Oh my god.
So what they believe, what the courts believe, is that the film crew, the missing film crew, quote unquote, are real people who have been killed, and that the woman who was impaled was also really killed. Mm-hmm. And that basically this guy had this footage of these people being murdered and he didn't do anything about it. So they charge him with murder. So to make matters worse, the director, Deodato, he had come up with this, like, scheme, right? Where after they were done making the movie, he made all of the actors sign these agreements that, like, oh, you can't do any interviews, you can't be in any commercials, basically you can't work for a year after the movie comes out because I want people to think this is real, right? Like, to keep the illusion going. So of course they think they're really dead because nobody's seen them in a year. Mm-hmm. So what they end up doing is bringing 4 of the actors on an Italian, like, morning show to have an interview and basically being like, we're alive, we're fine, this was a pretend movie, right? And then they also bring the prop that they used to impale, quote unquote, this girl, and they show how it was done, right? Like, they put, like, a big piece of wood in her mouth, and then they had another piece of wood attached to a bicycle seat that she sat on to make it look like it was going, like, straight through her. And then he also brought in footage of her, like, talking to the crew. Like, after they'd filmed this impalement scene, she's covered in fake blood. Clearly she's still alive. Mm-hmm. So they end up dropping the murder charges. But they do convict the director and the producers, and I think United Artists, which is the studio that released this movie, of obscenity and violence. And then Italy ends up banning the movie. And the big reason they banned the movie is, for probably the most controversial reason, the reason that I personally would not recommend this movie to anybody, and that is that there are a few animals that are killed in the movie, and they're really killed.
Mm-hmm. That's the reason I won't watch it.
Yeah. And if you didn't know that they were really being killed, you could watch it and enjoy it, probably. Well, I wouldn't say enjoy it, because I don't find it to be an enjoyable movie, but it wouldn't gross you out so much. I guess there's a DVD version you can buy that cuts out the animals being killed.
Yeah, I still wouldn't watch it. Just on principle, if they killed it. Like, did they have to? No.
I mean, his defense to it is that, like, for example, they kill monkeys in it, right? They kill a monkey. Well, to the tribe, because this was a real tribe that they were filming with, the brains of the monkey are like a delicacy. So they ate it after they killed it for the movie. So it's not like they just killed it to kill it.
Well, that's very different.
I think that was his defense, was like, listen, they ate these, like, they kill a turtle and they take it out of its shell. And okay, they ate the turtle and then they used the shell for something else. So it's not like it went to waste, but still, I don't like seeing animals be injured.
I want to see it. I was watching Dark Tourist the other day, and I didn't know that they were showing animal sacrifice on it, and I was like, this is very different. It was just bad.
Not knowing that it was real. So in any case, this movie was banned in Italy for 3 years. It ends up getting unbanned there in 1984. However, it's banned in quite a few other countries. I believe it's been banned in over 50 countries on and off. It was banned in the UK for a while. It has been unbanned. I believe it was not unbanned until 2001 in the UK. And that was only after they cut all of the animal killings. And eventually they do end up letting them release the entire movie in the UK. And a lot of these countries have admitted that, like, they didn't even watch it. They just heard that it was really gross, and so they just banned it because... So it's
ridiculous.
Yeah. You know, it was only unbanned in Australia in 2005. I believe that it is still banned in New Zealand.
Do they sometimes just not get around to, like, unbanning stuff because it's not a priority?
Kind of.
Where they're like, oh, yeah, that, like, happened years ago, and, like, we had other stuff, and now it's like, well, yeah, we can unban it. Or...
Well, and I think with the rise of, like, DVD, it seems like is when this started to be kind of unbanned. Like, hey, you know, if it was banned, okay, well, you can't go see it in the theater, but now I can own it at home, and I want to own this movie at home, or I want to be able to watch it. And, I mean, attitudes towards censorship have also evolved, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, this movie came out before I was even born, so almost 40 years ago.
Yeah. I also think it's kind of dumb to, like, sit there with your stomach full of chicken or pork or beef and then go watch the movie and get butthurt about it. Like, yeah.
I know.
Where do you think your food came from, you know?
I know.
Like...
I know. Yeah. So anyway, so this movie was the first of its kind. I know that Deodato has some frustration with the fact that Blair Witch is kind of held up as like, oh my god, this new genre when Blair Witch came out. And he was like, yo, I made this movie like 25 years at that point previously.
And I went through hell for it. Like,
right.
Literally got arrested.
I went to jail. And was convicted of obscenity. And then this movie has...
Tried for murder.
Exactly. He could have gone to jail for life. But this movie has also been very influential. Probably the biggest person that it's influenced is a director that I personally don't care for, but that's Eli Roth.
I like Eli Roth.
I find Eli Roth to be a very attractive man. I don't know that I enjoy literally any of his movies.
I like his movies.
But a few years ago, he came out with a movie called The Green Inferno, which is the name of the documentary that they're filming in Cannibal Holocaust. And so The Green Inferno, Eli Roth's movie, was a tribute to this film.
Which I liked it. I thought Green Inferno was good.
I had some issues with it. Probably the same issues that I have with Cannibal Holocaust.
Okay.
It's not what I would call, I hate this term, but it's not what I would call like racially sensitive.
Yeah.
And then I hate that in Green Inferno, obviously we know what Eli Roth thinks of like Greenpeace and people who fight for, you know, ecology, because he makes them all really horrible people.
Yeah.
So, you know, I definitely I didn't dislike it. Sergio and I watched it. Not that, you know, gosh, I think back when I was pregnant, we watched it. And I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it.
Okay.
I didn't love it, but I liked it better than Hostel. I'll put it that way, which I just found to be really boring.
I will not watch
Hostel. You didn't like Hostel?
I remember when Hostel came out and everyone was like, oh my god, this is disgusting. This is like the worst thing ever. And me and my dad were like, we're going to watch it. And we both just sat there like, I've seen worse. I've seen worse.
When I first saw Hostel, I loved it. And then I rewatched it recently, and I didn't know a long time ago that Quentin Tarantino was involved in it. But when I rewatched it, I was like, is this a Tarantino movie? And I don't like Quentin Tarantino. I'm going to get attacked for it. I don't like Quentin Tarantino movies. So when I rewatched it, I was like, oh god, what is this?
Which is so funny because the only thing that I've ever enjoyed Eli Roth in is playing the Bear Jew in Inglourious Basterds.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I haven't seen Inglourious Basterds. That's when I realized he was
attractive.
Oh my god.
I was like, oh my god, he's a babe.
Have you seen Clown?
Nope.
By Eli Roth? I like that one. I thought that one was good. I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix.
I feel like I've seen Hostel. I've definitely seen Hostel 2. Because I remember that guy's penis being split in half. And I've seen The Green Inferno. And I feel like that's all that I've seen that he directed, but I know I've seen some other movies that he produced.
Okay.
You said that with a
yeah,
straight-ass face, Rachel.
What?
I remember that.
Penis?
Yeah, you're just like, oh, I remember the guy's penis being split in half.
I remember
that...
who was I watching? I was watching that movie with somebody, and I can't remember who now. And I just remember cracking up at that part because it was so cheesy. I was just like, oh my god, this is so stupid. Yeah. Anyway,
but sometimes, like, I don't know, like when I was watching Clown, some of it I thought was just kind of funny because sometimes Eli Roth movies aren't made very well. I mean, like you just said,
oh, they're definitely
so
not.
Sometimes you just laugh at them, but
yeah.
I still enjoy them. Like there are some things about Clown that you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
but it's still fun.
Nope, I'm good. Anyway, Cannibal Holocaust. That's it. I mean, I think it's on Shudder. If anyone should like to watch it, I wouldn't. But you know what? I actually have a friend, Nikki. You've met her, Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
She loves this movie. She loves it. She's a huge horror fan, and she loves this movie.
Well, it's definitely a staple. I don't want to say it has to be appreciated for what it is in itself, but
I can appreciate for what it did for horror movies.
Yeah.
I mean, because again, this was a revolutionary. No one had ever seen anything like it. I mean, like I said, I can see where people thought it was real. I mean, they didn't understand. I remember people thinking Blair Witch was real.
Oh, yeah. I think I talked about that one, and
yeah.
You know, what was it? Heather's mom got, like, a bunch of I'm so sorry for your loss cards.
Yeah.
After that. Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's Cannibal Holocaust. Again, I would not recommend it to anybody, but if you want to watch it, it's out there. Just be forewarned with the animal deaths. It is disgusting.
Trigger warnings abound.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm just saying that for me, like, this movie is disgusting, but a lot of people would say that oh my god, no, you're crazy. This movie's great. It's a classic. So it's just different tastes. Yeah.
Isn't it also like a little exploitative of whatever tribe they chose to film with? Because it's like they're framing these people as if they're monsters, basically.
Well, but they're not. I mean, his whole point was that they're not.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, his big thing was just the differences between, I hate to put it this way, but between, like, what we consider civilized and uncivilized, and then the bigger question of, like, what does it mean to be civilized?
Oh, okay. So he's aiming it at
Westerners. Because the Americans are supposedly
basically
civilized, but they're out there gang raping this girl and treating the natives like shit. And so are they really civilized?
Okay.
Yeah. So
that was something that wasn't quite clear to me when I knew there was a statement being made, but I didn't exactly know what it was.
It is. I mean, that's the statement, and then just, like, sensationalism and journalism, which he really hated.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
But it's you know, it's a different movie.
And cut.
And cut.
Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter at QOTD Podcast, on Facebook at facebook.com/QOTD Podcast, Tumblr at queensofthedamnpodcast.tumblr.com, and YouTube at Queens of the Damn Podcast.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, and subscribe to us on Podbean, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and TuneIn Radio. You can also follow us on our blog, queensofthedamnpodcast.wordpress.com, to find bonus content and extra information on our episodes.
If you would like to donate to our show, you can find us at patreon.com/QOTD podcast, where you can receive special perks as a listener for becoming a monthly patron. If you would like to make a one-time donation, you can send it to QOTDpodcast@gmail.com on PayPal. Donations are greatly appreciated. They improve the quality of the show and go towards the production of future merch along with a new logo.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah, so, I mean, people thought...
What's so
My
funny?
sisters burped really loud in the kitchen. Cut this out.
Leave it in, Jared.
She just belched and then she just looked at me.
Does she want to be on the podcast? Like, is that
Do you
what
want to
her
be on the
deal is?
podcast? No, but she's hungry, so she had to come down and make food.
But
in
I'm
the living
hungry.
room.
It sounds like you already ate. Tell her that.
She's mad because she got kicked out of the living room.